module under section, you go for data collecting data, and then writing a research proposal. Next lesson, we only go to module 7 and module 8. So today we'll go to module 5 and module 6. For this training is a quantitative, right? Quantitative, that means it involves number. So involve number, I mean we have to collect that number, or we have to collect the data. Right? So the data you can collect in different way. Later on, we'll show that you either collect it first hand. I mean, you are the one who get the data or initiate the data. In this case, we call a primary data research, primary quantitative research. Or some other people already collected the data for you, like for example, gross domestic product, inflation, export, how many export number, how many foreign direct investment. That one, if we collect from that one, is called secondary data, right? But anyway, quantitative means involve number, involve collecting data. So this process is quite important, right? Usually, well, I will advise people that, of course, according to procedure, you have to do introduction first. You have research gap, research objective. Then you find for your literature review. Then you go for methodology. Then what method you use. Then only you find data. But for practical reason, of course, you must have a very good research issue, right? Then you formulate your research objective. That means you know what is the problem to be researched on. Then you know how you're going to do it by research objective. Then later on, in this case, until this aspect, you should have some knowledge or you have read some literature review, maybe not intensively literature review, but after that, you should have go to collect the data if your research is secondary data, right? So later on, you only come back to finalize the introduction, literature review, all these things, right? So collecting data to ensure that your research or research proposal actually can work. Because I have come across some of the practical example that, like for example, my student do thesis, right? They have a very good idea, but I told them this research proposal, if you do it, you cannot graduate because you don't have data, or you need to pay a lot of money to buy the data, right? So therefore, make sure you have the data. It's just like you go into a maze, you have the plan, and then you make sure the maze actually got an exit door, not like no exit door. So the data is your exit door, okay? Unless you do a primary data, so you can do a survey and then you collect yourself, right? Therefore, this module actually focus on data collection, as it said here. It covers searching, selecting, validating, and designing question A for data collection, right? So these are the topic that cover. Where's my screen? That cover under this module, right? Selecting a method of data collection, establishing a validity and reliability. In this case, particular for primary data, the data that we collect, is this validate or not? Is this reliable or not? Then how to design questionnaire and then collecting secondary data. So as I mentioned before, just now, quantitative research you include primary data or secondary data, right? Two are completely different things, right? Completely different method to collect. So for today, module 5, I try to move from one to another, like primary data and secondary data. Okay. I cannot move the slide. Okay. First, selecting a method of data collection. I mentioned before, you have to decide secondary or primary data. Which one to choose from depend on your research. For example, you want to your research to see the acceptance of e-wallet, for example, right? You want to know consumer acceptance of e-wallet, whether they're good or no good. Then in this case, there's no secondary data. So you have to go for primary data. You have to ask them for opinion, right? Or you want to ask the perceived usefulness of another thing, right? Or a new technology. So in this case, you want to ask for people perception, right? Or perception of this new policy to employee, or the perception of the management involvement in in employee mental health. So all these things don't have a secondary data, so you have to collect it. So therefore you have to design a questionnaire and to get the data. So you choose primary data. Primary mean primary means survey, you go and get the data, right? Of course, in this case, survey previously before COVID, mostly we have to print out the questionnaire, we have to go physically to send out or mail out the questionnaire. But now I think digitalization has already accelerated so fast. So most of the survey, sometimes we distribute it digitally and share by friend, share in social media, all these things, right? Secondary data, for example, usually economics, secondary data, right? Like we get from World Bank, gross domestic product, right? Gross domestic product, foreign direct investment, total export. That one we cannot collected it, right? So if for Malaysia, export or Malaysia gross domestic product, so the statistical department will collect all the information they compile and put the number there, right? And then you can access the number from World Bank database or any other database, right? So like that. If you choose secondary data, of course, there are two types of secondary data, or mostly this type are linked to regression, right? You have so-called panel, so-called cross-section data, and then time series data. Right? Time series data, time I mean according to time, so you have a lot of year, right, for one country or one firm. Right? You go to data stream, if you have finance background, you want to collect data on, let's say, Colombo stock exchange, right? Or this company A, then you have this company A, you have profit, loss, sales, debt, liability. You collect from different years, maybe 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, right? So one company, that is primary data. Or one country, you want to collect from GDP, foreign direct investment, export, import. For one country only is called primary data. Or sometimes you got see people do research on happiness, right? You have this happiness index, right? For many countries every year. If you are not interested in one country a lot of year, you can do a cross-section data. That means you particularly focus on 1 year. For example, you want to focus on 1 year before COVID 2019 until about 2020. You want to focus on 2017. Then after that, 2000, right? Or 2 years before and 2 years after, or 1 year before, 1 year after. So you want to see the happiness got changed or not. Or you want to just particularly focus on one particular year, right? Or you get a lot of country, but 1 year, right? Then in this case is cross-section data, right? Reason or justification, come back to your research objective, your research design. What do you want? What is your intention, right? This that one. Okay. The common problem and solution we'll see later on, right? Okay. Common problem, for example, is like usually we'll come across that some of the variable, right, is missing data. When you do it, when I do a so on whether it's missing data, right? So if let's say you do a panel data, that means you're a combination of time series and cross section. Usually I always do panel data because it will be easier in terms of data management. If your panel data, that means you're collecting a lot of data. Suddenly you found that, let's say one country, let's say Thailand, don't have complete data for variable B, example. So what happened? If it's incomplete data, it's only 1 year in between. Let's say you want to collect from 1990 to 2022. 1990 to 2022, maybe a lot of years, right? Maybe in between 2000, the year 2000, missing 1 year only. Therefore, what you can do is you take the before and after, average it out. If 1 year is okay, then if continuously for many years, right, then you have to no choice, you have to delete it. But if let's say the data is in front, let's say you start from 2000 to 2022, right? For Thailand or for many other countries, 2000, 2001 don't have. So what you can do is either you do an unbalanced manner or you cut off. I mean, instead of start 2000, because many countries 2000 and 2001 don't have. So why not you start at 2002? Hmm? So when you come up with this problem, right, if some of you have done before, then maybe you can add in a question and answer, and then you mention it and we solve the problem. And in your brainstorming or one of the tasks later on, I'll give you some problem and then you try to give a answer. Okay. Again, of course, I provide some appendixes, right, which is quite useful. You keep for it, and then maybe useful for you in future. So here we don't cover qualitative research, but appendix M5 mean module 5. Appendix module 5 number 1, brief info on interview and qualitative research. You can have a view on that one. Next, establish the validity and reliability of research instrument. This is extremely important if you do primary data. But secondary data also mean that your variable you must be valid and reliable. Okay. Concept of validity. Right? Validity means appropriateness and accuracy. Right? Mostly these two term validity and reliability, we actually associate it with primary data research. That means survey data research, right? And survey data regression. But in terms of secondary data, you must also make sure that the variable that you need to use. For example, you want to do a endogenous growth model, right? You want to proxy for human capital, right? Last time, long time ago, they used enrollment in secondary education as a proxy for human capital, right? Some even use enrollment in primary education, right? So let's say if you use enrollment in primary education for proxy for human capital, is this appropriate? May not be. A primary student who, let's say standard six primary student, they may not have enough knowledge, right, to be categorized as human capital. Then some use many previously used enrollment in secondary school, but later on they still think that it's not really appropriate, right? Maybe those who are SPM or STBM level, they may not still consider as a skilled worker or knowledgeable worker. So therefore, nowadays when you have proxy for human capital, they usually use enrollment in tertiary education, right? So therefore, you have to also have a variable that accurately represent what you want. As I mentioned, like human capital is a concept. You need to have a variable that is valid and accurately represent or proxy for the concept that you need to use. Right? Right? In terms of survey also, you have to ask the correct question, right? Of course, in this case, we usually try to adopt those who already has and then we modify lah, right? So validity means accuracy. If you take in terms of like this shooting nowadays, Olympic shooting become some sensation news, right? So we're shooting the middle there, blue eye is the perfect, right? So it's the most accurate. So if you if your question or variable hit the middle like here is valid accurate, right? Concept of reliability is consistent. You cannot hit one in the middle and the rest fly all over. Right? In this case, you also won't win any medal. Right? So reliable is you have to consistently hit the same point. Right? So you see the same thing. Right? If here, very reliable, consistently hitting around. Can you see my mouse, right? My mouse cursor, you consistently hitting about the same area but outside. So it's reliable, but you won't win you any medal because there's not accuracy, right? So reliable but low validity, low accuracy. Here is even worse everywhere, right? Low reliability and low validity. Here is the best, high reliability and high validity, right? So what do you think? Like, how do you determine whether it's valid or reliable? In secondary data is your judgment. But in primary data, there are statistical instruments to prove and prove the validity and reliability. Okay, so factor affecting reliability. Then, okay, so far so good, okay? Then what is a factor that can affect the reliability, the consistency? Basically, on primary data or survey, okay? You do a survey, how, uh, in a practical way, what will actually affect the consistency? For example, um, anyone will try? Okay. For example, you have this the wording of the question. If your okay, reliability or consistency in this case mean if let's say you have this set of question, you ask the same people under same on the same people, then they give you uh different answer, that means not consistent. They give you same answer, then consistent. If your wording of the question is very, very confusing, I mean now you ask me this question, I answer you okay, very likely. I give you number 5 out of 1 to 7. I give you number 5. But maybe next time you give me back the same question, then I might interpret the question wrongly. I think, in this case, I just think it's number 2 only. So in this case, it's not reliable. So therefore, the wording of the question is very important. Physical setting, right? Another one is respondent mood. Here in this case, if we use the online survey, there's always this problem is we just blast off all the survey, give a nice email, hope that you will help me to do the survey for my research. Then it will take you only about 5 to 10 minutes. But you cannot control when the respondent do it, they are in what condition. For example, you ask the role of management in in employee efficiency. If suddenly I quarrel with the superior, right? So I hate the management. So everything I put bad, 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 very bad, very bad, very bad, very bad, right? Or if I click the survey and before I click the survey, I receive a big bonus. Everything I click good, 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 very good. So in this case, the mood of the respondent is will actually affect the reliability lah, right? But of course, in this case, sometimes no choice. But anyway, you have a statistical method to validate it. Then of course, not only respondent mood, the interviewer mood, then the nature of the interaction, all these things will actually affect the survey, the reliability. Okay. Then the reliability and validity evidence actually we have in appendix M52 is see you see the appendix here, reliability, what is measured, item consistency. So as I mentioned to you, if you do a primary data research, you usually have a statistical way to prove it, right? So if correlation, converge alpha more than correlation more than 0.3, converge alpha more than 0.7, confirmatory factor analysis, composite reliability more than 0.7. So if you fulfill this criteria, right, this criteria, you are considered as reliable. Okay? Content validity, you have many validity, content, construct, and criterion. Each of them have their own thing. Review past literature, expert opinion, right? Content validity. Therefore, to ensure this content validity, sometimes the easy way out is we take a very good journal, right? But a very good article published in high-ranking journal, right? That is exactly or about the same like what you want to measure. You adopt that questionnaire, right? Or maybe with some modification, and you give credit citation or proper citation. So you have expert opinion, right? But if you adopt from a article that published in not like just or adopt from somewhere from the blog, whatever, then in this case you wouldn't have expert opinion. Okay, or it. Then construct validity, you have this exploratory factor analysis loading above 0.5, confirmatory factor AVE more than 0.5. For those who are used to do the primary data, then you know that how to get this AVE numbers, right? If you use partial smart PLS, then when you run the bootstrapping, all these things will come out. Okay? Criteria validity, causation. So all these are how you measure. Okay, questionnaire design. For primary data, remember primary data usually we do under survey. And this survey, of course, if you use qualitative, this survey can be interview, but usually quantitative survey, you have to choose a number, right? To make anything into a number, you can use the Likert scale. Common Likert scale is 1 to 5 or 1 to 7 or 1 to 10. But I was that 1 to 5 or 1 to 7. If you want to have more variation, you use 1 to 7. For example, 1 is most disagree, most dislike, or most unlikely. 7 is highly likely, most like, or strongly agree. Right? So 1 to 7, and you have to be consistent. If every question you put 1 is not good, disagree, bad, don't like, 7 is good, agree, strongly agree, and most like, then you have to be consistent, or all the questions also you will be like that. Cannot be, let's say in section B, 1 is the best, 7 is the worst, right? So cannot must be consistent, right? So one important element of question A, either your open end and close question. Quantitative survey usually we won't do open end. Open end is just like after the end of the question, you add on an open end to like add on only. Otherwise, if open end question, quantitative survey, quantitative research, you cannot capture it into a number, right? Label measurement, nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio, right? For example, some are just like gender, right? You cannot rank it, right? You cannot say male is better than female or female is better than male, right? Or right, but ordinal sometimes or other thing you still can rank. For example, education level, right? Of course, secondary school we are expected, or in generally secondary school is higher than primary school, then higher than secondary school is tertiary education. Even tertiary education got degree, master, PhD, right? So in this case you can rank, right? So yeah, but of course sometimes also quite difficult. Practically and theoretically is different. In practically, you not only have diploma, degree, and master and PhD. You have this professional certificate like ACCA. Then this another certification, other professional certification. Then in this case, you do not know whether, let's say, ACCA are actually equivalent to which one. This another professional certification is actually equivalent to degree or master or in between. So there's a problem. I got come across this problem, like they do on housing, right? Housing, by supposingly is they want to rank the housing according to, let's say, bungalow is the highest, then semi D, and then condo, terrace, and then low cost flat. But then suddenly people question, condo nowadays can be much more expensive than a semi D, right? Depend on the place, right? And then sometimes so condo also have cheap one and expensive one. Semi D and bungalow also have big one and not so big one. So depend on the location. So how can you rank the type of housing according to like one the most expensive, the highest levels, and the lowest level? So therefore, this level of measurement you have to be very clear, or otherwise it's being disputed, right? So that are the common example that I faced. Okay. Then order of the question and section is important, right? Nowadays you have different opinion. Some last time I remember they ask you for demographic first, right? How old are you? What's occupation? What's your income, gender, ethnicity? They ask the question. But I noticed that those who send email ask us to do a survey, nowadays they put the demographic at the last part, right? They straight away go to the question first, right? So order of the question is depends lah, right? Maybe there are some reason for it. And survey area bias accessibility, you have to be alert, right? Because usually nowadays we use online survey, we share into the Facebook or Instagram or whatever, right? Then to ask people to do a survey, you ask friend to help you to do a survey. Sometimes we ask student to help them to do survey. So in this case, there is a survey bias, right? All your respondent are one group. So let's say I want to do a survey. I just ask all the Utah students do the survey. So I cannot say that my research is for tertiary education student because 90% of it is come from Utah, right? Or maybe 80% come from Utah, 20% come from Kedah. I cannot say that it's for all university in Malaysia, right? Or sometimes some my friend or students say that when they do survey, I ask them when you want to collect and how you want to collect. If you want to collect on Klang Valley only, then you cannot say that, oh, empirical research in Malaysia. You say in Malaysia, you have to collect from everywhere in Malaysia, every state, every place. So you just collect in Klang Valley only, you just stay in Klang Valley. Or you want to collect in one place only, in Sibu or Sandakan or Sungai Long. Right? So it's like that. But again, survey error, if you have degree student, they usually have this error is that most of them in Utah, most of the student is Chinese, so you will notice that their survey respondent is 90% Chinese, maybe 20%, 5% Malay, 5% Indian. So in this case, you have a ethnic bias, or in terms of gender, usually it's not much lah. So you must make sure that your survey don't have all this bias lah. And of course, sensitivity, as I mentioned in previous module, right? Nowadays, it's very sensitive, right? In Malaysia and in Europe and other countries, is different, right? Survey, for example, in gender, you cannot say male, female, and others, right? Others cannot. You can only say male, female, and do not disclose, or just male and female. But if you to send an article or to some journal in Europe or in US, you have to fill up some form, right? They ask you gender, and then the gender category got a lot. Then ethnicity also got a lot. So some of the thing is quite sensitive, right? But anyway, before you set up the survey, you need to go through an ethical clearance of your institution. I believe that all institutions, if not all, also most of them has this requirement that before you send out any survey questionnaire to other people, then you need to get approval from your institution, from your university, right? They have a committee to check whether your questionnaire is appropriate or not, got touch on sensitive issue or not, right? They will not check you whether your questionnaire actually is reliable or not, validity or not, whether or not reliability high or not. No, they only check based on sensitivity, right? Or appropriateness of your questionnaire for other people. Okay? Then collecting secondary data, okay? Appendix 5 or 4, later we'll see the sources, right? Okay? Yeah, various of sources to collect, right? In the appendix there, we have, maybe we show the appendix. Okay? I hope you got download this appendix also, right? 5 or 4. Secondary data, you do not need to spend more, you can spend less time to compile your data. If primary data, you need to set your questionnaire, get ethical clearance, maybe you need to hire RA to help you to do the survey physically, or even though you do it online, you still have to go through layer and layer and layer, and of course you're subject to some other bias or other technical issue, right? But if you do secondary data, you can get it from many ways. Some of the source I listed here because it's free. Of course, some data you need to pay a lot of money. I will not be encouraging that. Like World Bank is already much more than enough for you. Got so many secondary data. I think most of us actually use the World Bank or International Finance Management if you are more deal on government finance statistics. Right? OECD is very limited, only the OECD country only. Pen were a little bit not so user friendly, according if based on compared to World Bank, but sometimes you also can find. I think this one of the good thing is last time they are the only one to have the total factor productivity. UN concrete, many of us didn't aware of this one. This one they have a very detailed quick statistic, right? You can have from what country to what country according to export of what item they have. If you do international trade or you go to tax or tariff or excise, all these things, right? You have a code, right? So they can go to very detailed, like export of petrochemical, export of electronic item, export of rubber related item. So they have a very detailed trade data, right? You can explore. Of course, United Nations, they don't have much, but I'll get the United Nations SDG goal from here also. And World Trade or trade data as well. Then if you want to do Malaysia data, you have go to Malaysia, Statistical Department of Malaysia, Central Bank, right? Sometimes Central Bank or Statistical Department of Malaysia, you have to, especially this one, you have to buy, like for example, the survey data, but it's not expensive compared to other source that I would list down here. For example, institution ICR, Institute of Credit Risk. The one you want to buy the institutional quality data, that one is in 10 or 10,000 above USD, right? So it's not encouraged to buy or pay a lot of money for data unless you have research grant. Even though you have research grant, the grant will ask you, if you have alternative free data, why you need to pay money to buy a similar data? Okay. See, I see some comment, unable to sign in. Then later we'll deal with this one later, okay? Sign in. Wait, so shall we continue? Okay. Okay. Then format according to the software format. Right? When you download data, later I show you when you download data from the World Bank, right? It give you in a format that you cannot run it in. Let's say you want to do secondary data. Usually I will use Stata. You cannot input it in Stata. You have to adjust it according to format. Right? Then another is more is better than less. What do you mean more is better than less? I always advise that for those who do a secondary data or primary data as well, right? You collect more data because let's say primary data, you ask more question, right? You may not be using that part of the question. Let's say you got 5 part. The last part you might not be using, but you still ask because if you're unsure you're using or not. Because if you don't ask it, right? You ask it. So after you collect that one, you notice that there's one part important missing. You cannot go back to the same person to collect again, right? For secondary data, is okay, right? You are missing one important variable that you forgot to collect, or only now you realize that you need to collect. Then you can always go back to the World Bank database and then you recollect again, and then you compile and insert it again, and then make it nicer again. It's less problematic but waste your time, right? So you collect more is better than less, right? Let's say you intended to do secondary data 2000 to 2003, then in this case you better collect furthermore few years, right? Maybe because few more countries, so that when you delete those countries that they don't have complete data, you may have more, right? So collect more is better than less, especially if you collect more also, it won't cost you much money, right? Unless collect more cost you much money, then it's different, right? Then the metadata. What is metadata? So now we go to this side first. This is the World Bank database, right? In the link, can you see? Can you see? In the link I give you, you can go to here, right? Usually database, we just use the World Development Indicator because this one is like all in one, right? You have almost everything here, right? All in one. So we click the database is World Development Indicator, or by default, they'll give you this one, right? Country. So you choose. So I just choose a few Asian country like Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand. Let's say you want to choose Malaysia. Malaysia start with M. You can click here M. Malaysia, then Indonesia. Can see the screen, right? Can you see the screen? Assume can. Then Singapore, Thailand, right? So you want to, if you have specific target, yeah, can you see? Hello? Hello, can see, right? Hello. Okay, so you see from here, if you don't have a specific country, right? You just want to do everything, then you click here, right? You click here, that means everything. Okay, everything. Unclick is like that. Okay. This is a country. Then you choose the series. That means what is the data that you want. So GDP coefficient, according to ABC lah, right? ABC A. When you come to this part, maybe you already have your objective. You already identify what variable that you want. For example, you want GDP growth. So you take GDP growth. Here you notice there's a lot. If you want to have GDP, you have a lot of type of GDP. Where? Right? And then they are in different nomination, right? Usually, if for me, I will try to use constant and LCU. LCU mean what? LCU mean local currency unit. Depend on different needs and different preference lah. For me, I don't really choose in terms of USD. I let no choice because in terms of USD, so they will convert Malaysia GDP or commercial export to USD. That when you convert to USD, you're subject to exchange rate fluctuation, right? So I'll prefer in local currency unit. Why? If I choose GDP, constant local currency unit, when you go into regression later on, we have to do in the last two module, you use the log form. When you use log form, it's just a percentage change, right? So it will not affect anything, right? It's just percentage change. You won't think that, oh, local currency unit, if Malaysia is RM, Indonesia is rupiah, Singapore is Sing dollar, like that, how to compare? Right? In this case, if you log it, you just in terms of log form, a percentage change. So I will usually choose like that. So after you choose this one, then you choose year, time, right? Unless you have a specific time that you want to study. For example, you want to study post Asian financial crisis. That means maybe Asian financial crisis 1997, you give another extra 2 more years, so you 2000 start until now. Right? Unless you have a specific time frame you want to study, or else you click here, you select everything, right? Starting is 1960, right? Select everything, right? After that, you download Excel, okay? After you download Excel, you download to your own computer, the data will be like that, right? If the data like that, can you see the Excel file? Can you see Excel file? Because I share the window, I think you can see the Excel file, right? I'm not in the Excel file, right?
Yes, yes, can
good.
see.
Good. You see the data like that cannot be inputted to the any statistical software. Okay? You have to do some arrangement. That one we do it. Maybe we do it in another module, right? One thing you need to see. Also, another thing is you see here, you bracket here. Usually, I will delete this one. I just put 2000. Okay, but anyway, the arrange start first. What I want to show you is just now is you remember or not the metadata. When we download the data, usually we are very excited, and then we just take the number here. Especially if you want to arrange, you just arrange it in a new. No, you arrange it in a stata format. Usually you put a plus here, and then you copy and paste accordingly. For example, Malaysia, right? Usually you have to arrange that we do like that we do here. But more important now, we want to show is you don't delete this one. This one is very important. The metadata. Okay, this one we delete first. This one I just now add on one only. Right? When you download data, you come with you exactly like that. Right? This is just now already download. If you come with accident, you with this one you don't delete it. Why? Because you give you the definition. You may not be to your surprise or to your surprise in the PhD proposal defense, right? That I attend also, they will ask you GDP. What's the meaning GDP? Export. What do you mean export? FDI. So FDI actually inflow or outflow. What do you mean FDI? In terms of currency, in terms of what? GDP in terms of domestic currency or foreign currency. They'll ask you in very detail. Then this is very important. So long definition. So you have GDP. So what do you mean the GDP that you download, right? This one, of course, this one is not important. This one is important. So it's annual percentage growth of rate of GDP at market price based on constant local currency. Right? So in this case, is at market price, constant local currency. So aggregate see aggregate based on 2015 prices. So sometimes you may not use it, but sometimes you may need use it. Foreign direct investment refer to direct investment equity flow. Sometimes you may not use it. Sometimes you may need to use it. Sometimes you may be asked for it. The people ask you for it if you are going for your PhD or master Viva or presentation. You may get a surprise that people ask you in detail. This one what is your data already? Why don't you have this one? Foreign direct investment. What do you mean foreign direct investment? From where? Then they'll ask you in detail. So this one will actually help you. So keep this file for safety purposes. Keep the metadata file, right? And this metadata file also very useful for you in your methodology. You put FDI. Sometimes you also need to explain what is FDI, where it's come from, type of FDI. Some other thing you have to have more detailed explanation, then you can get from here, right? You get from. So this one don't delete. Many make a not same mistake lah. Is they delete this one, right? And if you delete already accidentally, also never mind, right? For example, you go back to the series here, GDP growth, right? This one where is GDP, right? Where do you get this one? It's exactly here. You see the I here? Wait. You see view metadata. You can see around view metadata. You can still click back this one, and you can get back. If you try to download financial item like government budget, interest rate, all these things, interest rate also got many type of interest rate, right? So this metadata will be very helpful, right? You are actually downloading the same thing, right? Just in case you forget to download, then you can also get that from here. Okay. Any question so far? No. Okay. All right. Then we go to another one, the survey. Right? Wait, I bring some of that first. Survey, nowadays, we use Google Form, right? Google Form, you can straight away get your respondent. You can just download the result in Excel format very nicely, right? You can set another thing. Usually, we'll set the title, some of the introduction, or like a message to the participant or the survey questionnaire. Then, you can put in section A, B, C, D, so that easier to do later on, right? What I want to see here is, you look at this one. This one is just a definition. Okay, let's say here 1 is strongly disagree, 5 is strongly agree. So in this case, they use the Likert scale from 1 to 5, right? Here, you see you have a lot of scale, linear scale, then multiple grid choice, tick box, right? All these things, right? You can choose lah, right? Multiple choice, that means you can choose A, B, C, D, E, right? Some of it, you can choose only one. Some you can choose more than one, right? And at the end, you see got a star here, right? How to make that one don't have should have a star here, right? So you have a star here. You make it compulsory, required. You don't click this one, that means it's not required. You don't have a star here, you see? You don't have a star here. If you click not required, people can skip this question. So therefore, you click required. So you won't skip this question. You have a star here again, right? So you put it in the A1. In this case, I will advise that you section A1, you put question A1, A2, A3, because why? When you want to translate this survey response to the Excel file, or then you run a quantitative regression or using a smart POS, right? This A1, A2, A3, A4 will come in handy for you. So you know that, oh, this answer is for A1, is for A, or for this one. So you have A, factor A, then the question for factor A is A1, A2, A3, A4. Factor B, the question for factor B is B1, B2, B3, B4. Rather than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, then it will be confusing, right? So all this A1, A2, A3, A4 is for question for section A, factor A. So when you do smart POS that time, you just straight away you know which question is for which factor. No need to be 1 to 5 is A, then 6 to 8 is B, then 9 to 21 is C, 22 to 24 is D. So no need. You know that A1 is for A, B1, B2, B3 is for B. Okay, so this one, I think most of us know how to do it lah, right? So you just do a Google form, then you can choose either linear scale. You can put here strongly disagree or strongly unlikely or strongly likely. So it's up to your choice. Okay. Okay, of course, you can always copy and then change the thing only. You can do many other things. Okay. Any questions so far? You see from here, you have some common problem as solution, right? So let's say now what happened is like that. Okay, let's work some practical issue. Okay. Can you see this one? What can be the proxy for trade balance, economic growth, exchange rate, and human capital and inequality? We mentioned just now, human capital. Last time they used enrollment in secondary education, right? Or even further, they still sometimes consider enrollment in primary education. But nowadays, mostly they use enrollment in tertiary education, or they also combine with innovation, patent, trademark or patent being patentized of some number of patent, number of trademark, all these things they consider as only human capital or innovation. Or most likely human capital proxy will be enrollment in tertiary education. Okay? Now, economic growth, as just now we see, right? You can just straight away take the GDP growth in terms of percentage annual change. Or you can just take the GDP, I mean in absolute amount, like this, in this case, like in million or billion, right? Not in percentage, constant local currency unit. And when you do the regression at time, you log it. So when you log it, it interpret in terms of percentage change is still considered as economic growth. Yeah. Exchange rate. Actually, you got a lot of type of exchange rate, right? Usually, we'll like if the European country like Malaysia, we use exchange rate with USD, or another one is real effective exchange rate, right? Now, the interesting thing is trade balance. Any economics lecturer or economics student here? What is the proxy they use for trade balance? Export minus import. Yes, trade balance is export minus import. But if you use export minus import, sometimes you get negative trade balance. So if you get negative trade balance, you cannot log negative, right? So then in this case, it becomes an issue, right? You can log negative. Some positive you can log, but some negative you cannot log. So therefore, you do some innovation, right? So trade balance, instead of use export minus import, you use export divide by import. So when you have a trade surplus, right, you'll have more than one. Export more than import, so you have more than one. If you have trade deficit, instead you get negative, that means import more than export, you get less than one, you get 0 point something. So 0 point something indicate trade deficit, more than one in trade surplus. So instead of, in this case, you can overcome the negative problem, right? Then which variable need natural logarithm form? Which variable do not need? Maybe you ask some of the respondents. Which variable need to be logged? In regression, we sometimes need to be logged, right? Why we need to log it? Because if you don't log it, right, those first to be consistent, like for example, Malaysia GDP and China GDP and US GDP and Indonesia or Thailand or Philippines, it might not be different. And this GDP number or foreign direct investment or export number is in a very, very big amount. So when you have a number like 1,276, this big amount, you usually come across this so-called heterogeneity problem when you do regression, secondary data regression. So we log it so that you avoid this problem and you standardize it. And when you log it, it's easy to interpret in terms of percentage change. But which variable need to be logged and which need not to be logged? So when you log is in terms of percentage change, that means those that are already in percentage no need log, right? Because you log the already in percentage, like just now, if GDP growth is already in percentage, you log the GDP growth, that means it's percentage change of the percentage. So it don't make any sense, right? So first thing, which variable don't need log is already in percentage. Second, it's in ratio form. Ratio like trade balance, I export divided by import is already a ratio. Ratio is another form of like percentage. So no need log. No need don't log. Another one is index, like sustainable development goal index, right? Composite index, right? If you log, that means you have to be careful lah. You have to be interpret in that the percentage change in the index, not the index change, right? Okay. So these three items you do not need to log. Index, already percentage, or in ratio form, right? Because ratio is already part of percentage, like export there by import, just that you didn't times 100% only, right? So all these don't need to be logged. Okay? So it's better to have less variable or more variable. As I mentioned to you, it's just better to have more variable, because you collect more variable, you didn't use it, then you never mind, just ignore it, right? If you collect less variable, you want to use it, you have to recollect it. If you are secondary data, it's a bit easier. If you are primary data, it's impossible to recollect. Let's say you do a survey, you send out a survey form, suddenly you forget to ask 2 questions. Then you already got 300 respondents. Then these respondents are supposed to be anonymous, right? Or even though you know them, you will not be able to go back one by one to these 300 to ask that the extra 2 questions you miss out. Even though you can ask the extra 2 questions you miss out, you're asking them in different time frame, different scenario, different setting, and then in this case, the reliability and the consistency got problem again, right? So better to have more variable. And even though in econometric wise, right, for secondary data, you have more extra no use variable is better than you have less missing an important variable. Why? Because the extra variable that is not important one, statistically, it will be insignificant. But if you miss out an important variable in your secondary data regression, this missing, let's say you got y equals to your y is dependent, you have variable a, b, c, d, e. Let's say you miss out the e, right? You only have a, b, c, d, and e is very important, very influential. So the impact of e will now go to error term, because you have only a, b, c, d. You don't have a, b, c, d, e. So it will go to error term. Your error become very big, or in this case, your whole regression will be affected, right? The error right? If the error got problem, then your t statistic actually come from beta divided by standard error. So the standard error got problem, then your t statistic got problem. Then in this case, the whole p value and reject or do not reject all has problem. Therefore, it's better to have more variable than less variable. The next module will be, can see the PowerPoint, right? Writing research proposal. If you are either a undergraduate or postgraduate or PhD, you have to write a proposal. And if you are master or PhD also, you have to have proposal defense as well, right? If you're academic staff, if you have going to apply for internal grant or external grant, you also have to submit your proposal for funding, and people will evaluate your proposal, whether they think your research idea is worth or not, right? It's got contribution to the society or not, got match what they want or not. So they need you to have a proposal for either you are academic staff, you want to get a research funding internally or externally, or you are a student, right? Postgraduate student, you need to write a proposal to your supervisor, right? Or potential supervisor, and to some extent, you need to defend your proposal. You have a research proposal defense, right? Proposal defense, right? So now, this module will focus on writing a research proposal, cover the essential element of content of a proposal, including time frame, spending budget, and oral presentation. Of course, different institutions require different things. Right? Some university may require you, if let's say you are in PhD proposal defense, they may not require you to put in time frame planning or budgeting. Right? They just only need you to have chapter 1, 2, 3. But if you want to apply for funding or grant, you may need to put in planning or budgeting. And there are also a lot of detail on budgeting. For example, you cannot budgeting to buy a laptop, right? You cannot budgeting to conference papers or submission papers. Some of the items that you have to follow the grant organization or your institution organization. But here we try to do an overall. Right? Now, this module will focus on the purpose of proposal, content, time frame and budgeting, and then oral presentation. It will be quite light and easy module. What you need proposal and why you need to write a proposal. Proposal is just like overall plan structure. It's just like a book, the book content. People will want to buy the book or not, or think the book is suitable for you or not. You see the content or you see the introduction. So that one is a proposal. Right? Structure, strategy, design to obtain and answer the research question. Right? For scientific scrutiny and evaluation appropriateness, right? If let's say you want to apply FRGS, right? FRGS has certain priority area. So and then you propose your research, then they notice, they see whether your research is appropriate to be given funding, right, to carry on or reject, or with some minor amendment so that you can get the funding. Or you may apply for funding, but they think that this funding is too much. They were willing to give you funding, but in a slightly amount, right? So for evaluation, right? And for a reference document, because if you apply for funding, they will check back your proposal and see what you propose and what you do is correct or not. You do a PhD also, your proposal is objective is objective 1, objective 2, objective 3 is like that. Then at the end, you submit your thesis, it's completely different thing. Then in this case, you have a problem, right? So of course, you have to, if you want to change, you have to go through certain process lah. So here, the proposal function is like overall plan, is like a book content page, right? Then scientific scrutiny or evaluation, you want to apply for grant or you want to for PhD proposal defense, you want to continue, then is for evaluation whether your proposal, your research are able to continue or not, right? Then as a reference document to check back what you have promised to do. Right? For example, the content book is they say had this chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, but at the end inside there you don't have completely different thing, then cannot lah. Okay. Now, common content of a proposal. Of course, proposal usually will include only what we call chapter 1, chapter 2, and chapter 3, or introduction. Introduction, here the important point is the issue, the objective, right? Issue and the objective. And this issue and objective have to be consistent with the institutional one. Example, if you are a PhD student, right? You need to have 3 different set of objectives, or you have to, let's say you study in PhD in economics, you cannot do something on engineering, everything on engineering, then it's different thing, right? So, and then especially if you want to apply for a grant, right? They need you to match their criteria. So all your objective and research issue or introduction. Literature review, right? Evaluator or your lecture supervisor or grant the one who evaluate you will actually see how much work have you put in, right? From your literature review. You just put in a very, very short literature review. It means show that you are in a rush. Maybe deadline closing for this grant. You just see a bit and then hantam everything, then done. Right? And so the proper literature review actually show to the reviewer or the assessor how much effort you have taken in, right? And how much knowledge of you in for this topic. Then methodology is more on practicality, right? How do you going to achieve your objective? Do you have any strategy or method that you plan to use, right? Then in some case for PhD research, I think you don't need a time frame and budget lah. You need to have time frame and budget. For grant, budget is a very technical issue, right? if you are the first time apply for grant, I would advise that you find someone who are already expert or already done many times, because there are certain item in the budget, right, that you cannot put in, right? Some item like you cannot put in, or some item that you can put in, right? Then you have to justify why you need this amount of money, then how are you going to spend it, right? All these are very, very technical term. Even myself also not really familiar. You have to read the instruction or the detail very clearly, right? Time frame, of course, it's all we see, right? Then various format, right? As mentioned, different institution or different grant require different format. Referencing style and language, right? Either in US or UK English. Depends. Some they're not. Some grant or some institution would be specific, as long as they are consistent, right? Of course, nowadays technology, Microsoft Words, you can set either US or UK. Microsoft Word, I noticed that you also sometimes can set Malaysia English, right? It's better for you to choose either UK English or US English. Then you go throughout. Same. If you target some journal in UK, then still the start, right? It's better for you to choose your Microsoft Word, there you choose UK language, so that you don't need to amend the from UK to US to UK later on. Referencing style in Malaysia and in most of the world, they usually use APA style. If you are studying postgraduate study in Malaysia, most of them, I think they use APA style. But to your surprise, some of the high-ranking journal, right? Even though in US they not only use APA style, they use other different style, Chicago style or whatever style. In the journal itself, they will give you a guide on the reference style they use. Right? So therefore, reference style actually not that much a problem. You plan, yeah, if you're an academician, you're a lecturer, you write your journal, you write an article first, then when you submit, you check the reference style of the particular journal that you want to submit, then you amend first. The problem is, once we submit to this journal A, right, and then after some time you get rejected, you submit to another journal, different reference style, then you have to redo the referencing format again. So that is just a method of extra work only lah, right? To convert the reference style to their required one, or unless you want to choose a journal based on reference style, but I prefer that you choose the appropriate journal and then you change the reference style. Right? Abbreviation, diagram, figure, and table, you're very aware of it that you need to list down, right? Different journal also, or different grant requirement also, they need you to put a different setting. For example, figure and table, some are put before the table one or diagram one or figure one or figure two. Then they need to put before the diagram, or some you put below the diagram, so above the diagram. So that one is more on institutional factor, right? You have to follow. When you want to apply research grant, you follow the research grant requirement. If you are PhD or master student, you follow your university requirement. Okay, you want to submit to a journal, then you follow the journal requirement. Okay. Time frame and budget. As I mentioned earlier, if you are PhD student, right, master student, time frame and budget may not be important in your PD lah, proposal defense. Right? But if you apply for a grant, it's very important. You need to apply how long you want to finish the research, right? How much you need, and then you need that money for what? Yeah. So in terms of develop of timeline, you can use a sophisticated method, the Gantt chart, or I will prefer just a simple Microsoft table method or Excel. Microsoft table method, you can put a lot of box, right? Table, the first column, you can put your milestone. For example, writing proposal, research, collecting survey, designing questionnaire, collecting survey, then filter the question, the result, then run the result, write the proposal, and then submit. So in another column, you take starting from, let's say now it's August, September, October, November, December, then January 2025, February 2025, then you just tick, or you highlight the box, right? So use Microsoft Words in a simple one would be I think will be sufficient lah, right? Unless you're in project management, they use a Gantt chart. Last time in the project management, they use a Gantt chart. It's very, very complicated. Now also I don't know how to use already. You can put in also critical item. That means if this item is not complete, you affect the whole other item. So it's very critical. You can highlight some more. So but for mostly academic, social science, academic research grant, you don't need to go until, I'm not sure you need to go under Gantt chart or not. It's good also you use a simple Gantt chart lah, if you know how to use it lah. Okay. And proposed budget, list of costing. As I mentioned to you, list of costing is a very technical thing. Right? Some item cannot be inserted. I myself rarely apply for such a technical grant. Like some item, I would know like item like cost for journal publication cannot be included. Well, I know it's like cost to buy computer or laptop, all these things cannot be included. If included, they will automatically rejected. Right? So you have to check. You apply what grant, you have to check whether what item can be included and what item cannot be included. It's better to have a teammate or a that is very well known of the grant structure, then you ask them to together to do the costing and the budgeting. Right? Of course, budgeting you can use Excel, data analysis software, accounting. There are some budgeting software, right? A lot of software. If you know, then you can use it, right? In this case, costing you have to follow. If in Utah you want to apply for Utah RS, you have the costing whether you use what you have their they have their own itemized costing you have to fill out. Okay. So far so good. Then oral presentation. Of course, most of us are lecturers here, so we already present so many times, right? Some of tip for effective presentation. Of course, you have to know the subject matter, right? Then, because you'll be sometimes you ask for interview, you'll be selected. You have to interview. People will ask you question, then you need to answer. Grant also need to your presentation, right? In your proposal defense or in your YWA, right? A postgraduate student, PhD student, you are supposed to know more than your lecturer, more than your examiner, more than your reviewer, right? Therefore, when supervisor, your lecturer, your reviewer, your examiner ask you question in your YWA, you are supposed to know and to answer them convincingly, right? But of course, sometimes I was teach that if you cannot convince people, you try to confuse them lah, right? But of course, this one is no choice. But usually, if in YY you don't know the answer, or you say okay, I will. If it's a good question, then I will discuss it further with my supervisor and come up with a proper solution for this question. So, okay. But anyway, if you are applying for a grant, this proposal is for a grant, you cannot do like that lah. Oh, it's okay, I will discuss it later and come back to you. No, you have to answer. So you have to be knowledgeable on this subject matter. And some more, when you apply a grant, your CV and your background and all your record are to be submitted. So if let's say you want to apply for a sustainable development goal related grant and you never done anything on sustainable development, then in this case, people will question your knowledge unless your proposal are very convincing. Right? In this case, it's also better for you to get a teammate that has relevant background to apply. You want to apply for engineering grant, you're not an engineering background, then even though you know it might be a questionable matter, right? So this is something important. So, but anyway, if you have a good knowledge subject matter, your presentation will be more convincing, right? To organize, structure, and use diagram table. So sometimes presentation you use structure and organize, and most importantly, of course, we do not read from the slide. So from here, you see the PowerPoint slide here. You try to make it less word as possible, as less as possible. If you have a lot of word, our eye tend to read it one by one. And you remember or not, in the module when we do the literature review, I advise you that you read the literature and you put it in a table, you summarize it in a table form first. Then when you write, you don't look at the article, you look at the table. Because if you look at the article, you tend to say that you tend to have this feeling that wow, this center is so well nicely written. Then if I change it a bit, then it might change the meaning. Then in this case, I better copy the whole thing lah, right? So if you read the article, you tend to have higher similarity, right? So if you have shorter words or fewer words in your slide, right? You tend to have less similarity. You tend to only read one word by one word by word. Some I see proposal defend even for PhD, they read one word by one word, 100% no change, right? Just one word, one word, right? It really impossible for you to do it, and you must read one word by one word. I will advise that you read it faster a bit and louder a bit, so to make like you are more confident. Right? It's no choice lah. Right? And present within the time allowed. Right? If you are asked for interview, you are selected, your proposal are selected for second round of the grant selection, right? Or filtration, you are asked to present your proposal in 10 minutes. You don't take 1 hour, right? Or you don't take also 1 minute, right? So then again, of course, you practice and practice and practice, right? Right? More important is for if a postgraduate student, you practice, because sometimes postgraduate proposal is supposed to be 20 minutes. Better is before 20 minutes, but sometimes you have too many things to say. You may take up to 1 hour, right? So you have to practice and practice and practice. Okay. Now, one thing I want you to do is this one extra highlight. Okay. In your proposal, right, either for your PhD, for a master, or for research grant funding, or even though you are not writing a proposal for apply something, you actually want to write something, write an article to send to journal for publication, you usually need to have a unique selling point, right? So what is the special of your proposal compared to others, right? Like FRGS, all these things, or even though internal research grant, you may have a lot of people applying. You may have 1,000 apply, but only the grant funding may only be for 3, but 1,000 apply. So what special is your proposal compared to others? So you must have a unique selling point, right? Try to sell it, right? How to get the unique selling point? Remember, unique selling point don't come from method. When you say my unique selling point, I use special method. People run only one method. I run 10 method, right? So my one will be more comprehensive, much better. You see, I know a lot of econometric. I run method. So method shouldn't be used as a unique selling point, because method is just like for you to achieve the objective, right? The unique selling point come from where? Come from the issue, right? The issue and the objective. So if you highlight the issue that is very interesting, very urgent, very important, right? And is actually match the priority area of the grant, then you have a convincing research objective. And if it's more helpful if you do a proper research review and show that there really has a research that on this issue need to be solved, then you have a unique selling point, right? Something like that. Then if not, I summarize the today one on data collection, right? You notice that data collection, you should do it earlier, right? After you identify all the research issue, your research objective, right? Then you try, and of course, by identifying this research issue and research objective, in this case, it means that you already has some background, has some knowledge, and have already done some at least certain level of literature research, right? Literature review, even though not extensive, but at least certain level of literature review. Then it's recommendable for you to try to search for data, especially if you use the secondary data. Then you faster go and to the website or the database and see download whether you can get the data or not. Right? Maybe you can have the data, but the data, the year is very limited. Maybe just 6 years, 10 years, or 11 years, not 30, 50, 60 years. Then if you know that the data is maybe around 10 years, 10 years plus, right? 10 years only, then your methodology, you cannot run those generalist, those require a long, like panel data, all this that require long years, you cannot, right? Therefore, you have to the methodology have to adjust like ARDL that cater for short years data, 10 years or 15 years. Otherwise, you need data at about 30 years, right? For primary data research, after you settle all your research objective, right, and certain level of literature review, you faster go and search. In this case, it's a bit different. You read more literature, you scan through more literature, and see any other research question survey question that you can adopt, right, and modify. Unless you want to, or some that cannot, you have to develop your own idea, then you have more work to be done. So you have to adopt, you find more literature review research, so you have your set of questionnaire ready. Then you only come back to the literature review, then modify your objective based on what you can do, right? For example, if let's say you want to do factor A, B, C, D, E, but let's say secondary data, you don't have factor D. Factor D is incomplete data, extremely incomplete data. So you have to amend your objective. You have to drop the factor D, right? Otherwise, incomplete data, no data, how are you going to achieve your objective if your objective is to involve the variable D, for example, and the D, you won't get any data. So forever you cannot finish, right? So therefore, collecting data is just like you're looking for an exit door in a maze. You found that, you confirm that there's an exit door, then okay, then you start to enter the maze, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, run the data, do the analysis, and then conclusion, and then submit, then you exit, right? If you don't have data, that means you are entering a maze that have no exit door, and forever you will track there. Okay? So it's important to have data. And of course, for primary data, the survey research, there are a lot of instrument. Statistically, you can verify your validity and reliability. If let's say, for instance, you have some problem, let's say for compact alpha, less than how many, your AVE less how many, there are certain steps that you can do rectification, right? Rectification to make okay lah, right? There are certain statistical steps to make. Let me know that, oh, once this item, for example, factor loading, let's say your question A1, A2, A3, A4, A5, A3 factor loading is very low, so you have a choice to delete the A3 lah. Let's say you have A1, A2, A3, A4, A5, then you can delete one, is okay. But if you have A1 and A2 only, then A1 and A2 also got problem, then you have to delete everything. And that's why sometimes you get more is better than less. In the secondary data regression also, you include extra but not relevant variable is okay, because that not relevant variable, statistically, it will be insignificant. I mean, zero. I mean, nothing. You can ignore. So statistically, you can ignore the extra variable. But if there is an important variable or missing variable, this is what we call under specification. Then it's a very, very big problem. Okay? If you have missing an important variable in your model, that impact of the missing variable actually goes to error term, right? And you know that instead in secondary data regression, econometric regression, you see the t statistic, you see the p-value, oh, significant or not significant, reject is not or not reject is not. If your standard error are bigger, right, because of an important variable is missing, the impact of the important variable go to error term. So your t statistic actually is the coefficient divided by standard error. So the standard error got problem, your t statistic also got problem. So when a t statistic got problem, when you say reject or do not reject, the t statistic is higher or than the critical value, then it's wrong because the standard error is wrong, right? So beta divided by standard error, your t statistic is also wrong. So therefore, it's better have more than less. And some of the common issue I mentioned just now, like the negative issue, I think I mentioned to you, if your data got negative, right? Let's say not only trade balance, let's say for some instance, you got some data, some positive, some negative, you need to log the data, right? Let's say for net foreign direct investment, right? Sometimes you got net positive and some net outflow. So you got negative. And how? I think I mentioned this one before to you, right? You try to, no, I mentioned, in previous module, if let's say foreign direct investment, net foreign direct investment, you need to log, right? Right? You only cannot log those already in percentage, those in ratio, and those index. Right? So let's say you have a variable, let's say FDI inflow, you have negative and positive. So how you cannot log negative? You take a calculator and try to log negative and see, you give you error term. So what you do is you use a descriptive statistic. You find the minimum, right? Minimum, let's say minimum is negative 10, right? Then you, if that minimum is negative 10, then all the foreign direct investment, every single item in foreign direct investment, right? Single data, you plus 11, you plus the minimum plus 1. So then when you log, the minimum log 1 is supposed to be 0, right? I don't forget. So you add back and make sure I go and check log. Log 1 log 1 equal to 0. So for example, if you have a maximum negative value is 10, you plus 11, you plus 10 plus extra 1. So now after you plus the value inside, your foreign direct investment minimum value will become 1. So when you log 1, you get 0. Okay, so you add on, because statistically you have you add on a certain amount, right? It's okay. Okay, so get the point. Then for proposal, of course, proposal is a formal plan or just like a book content, right? For you to apply for grant, right? People to give you money, then they must also know what are you going to do, what you want to do, how you going to do it. Then you apply for money, how much you want. Then the money that you want, how are you going to use it? Are you going to use it appropriately, right? Or some other item that you are not allowed to claim, and some other item you claim, so you have to use it. Then how long you want to do your research, to the time frame, right? And then how well is your knowledge is, so they evaluate your whole proposal, right? Evaluate the whole application based on your proposal. For PhD student, right, you also need to have a proposal, right, so that the supervisor or the committee actually are convinced that based on you can finish what you want to do based on your proposal. If your proposal is want to plug the moon come down, then they are not convinced that you can finish your research. They will give you comment, feedback, or fail your proposal defense, right? Because in their opinion, this proposal is unachievable, right? Therefore, originally we have the module. What as a module say, you have a SMART objective. One of the item is achievable, measurable. Okay, so the importance of proposal for different purposes. If different purposes, you have different format, different referencing style, different language, different style to put in diagram or figure, right? Whether you need to put a timeline or not, you need to put a budget or not, how are we going to put it, right? You require you to put in a very detailed timeline or not so detailed timeline, right? Of course, most of the proposal, even for your apply for grant, you need, if you are selected, you need to do a presentation, right? You need to have a convincing presentation, right? So not to read from the slide, right? If your proposal defend, also you don't read from word by word. How do you make sure that you don't read from word by word? You don't put in so many words, then you won't read from word by word, right? Otherwise, you tend to read from word by word. Okay? Then the most important thing of all is you need to have a unique selling point. In your PC also, you need to have a unique selling point. Your proposal or your research must be different from others, right? Unique selling point don't come from methodology, come from issue, objective research problem, right? You have a urgent, pressing, important problem not yet solved, and your proposal are actually trying to solve it. Other people didn't solve it. Like I mentioned before last time, my PhD proposal. Many people say want to do sustainable development, but they're actually using pollution and very small aspect of the sustainable development. And that time already have the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal and already have the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal Index officially got 5 years or 4 years, but nobody done it before. So my selling point is Sustainable Development Goal is something that every country want to achieve. Every country sign a declaration that they want to achieve the United Nations SDG goal, right? And United Nations itself already have a statistical, numerical, that quantitative data on percentage of achievement of this goal, each goal and the aggregate. But nobody trying to use that data, right? So in this case, I try to promote a selling point that my one is the first, right, to do such thing, right? And such thing is actually important. The whole world are trying to achieve sustainable development goal. Therefore, what is a factor that affect the sustainable development goal is important, and the proxy and representation of sustainable development goal using the official United Nations SDG index. Nobody have done it before. I already proposed this one about 5 years or 7 years ago. When now you notice that so many people are doing the same thing, right? But they didn't quote me lah. So sadly, so if you do a sustainable development goal, make sure you find my article and give me a citation, okay? Any other questions so far?